My entitled mother goes crazy at a Halloween party, demanding money and repayment from my extended family, who hates my mother to begin with. My entitled mother made things so bad that the police had to show up just to get her drunken, screaming self off of their property, and I honestly could not be more embarrassed. Here's what happened. So this happened when my son was 5 years old, and it was Halloween, and this was the year before we moved out. My father's family had been pretty distant from us for a number of years, but they wanted to extend an invitation for us to attend their annual Halloween party as an olive branch. My dad left when I was young and passed away in a car accident a year later. Because he and my mother were still technically married, she got a lot of money from his life insurance, and we lived comfortably before she squandered most of the money on her gambling addiction. Bitter over the breakup, my mother wouldn't let my dad's family have anything to do with us. My siblings were okay with it, but I always missed them. When we got the invite for the Halloween party, I, of course, was happy to attend with my son. I had only intended for me and my son to attend, but my entitled mother insisted that she and my siblings had to come too. She demanded that we all go as a theme to appear like we are some kind of unified family. She said, "We all have to look alike. I want them all to see just how great we are without them in our lives." So out of a desire to avoid any kind of conflict, we all decided to agree on the Little Mermaid just to shut her up. I went as Ariel, and my son went as King Triton, and my entitled mother went as Ursula, which is honestly pretty fitting. My son chose our costume for us. He had a stuffed Sebastian toy, so he brought it with him, and my entitled mother was already on the larger side, and her hair and makeup looked exactly as you would expect as a live-action version of Ursula. I was so uncomfortable in my seashell bra and tail skirt, I felt really exposed overall. But when we got to the party, my relatives greeted us happily. They commented on how much we've grown from the last time they saw us, and couldn't believe I was a mother. They fawned over my son, giving him compliments and fussing over how adorable he was, and he just soaked it all in. He was always a friendly, outgoing kid. He was introducing his Sebastian stuffy to everyone. It was too cute. He was also cute in his green mermaid tail and his giant beard. I was still wearing my coat because I was so uncomfortable in my outfit. I wasn't fat, but I wasn't skinny either, and I had a bit of a belly. My entitled mother was soaking in whatever attention was coming her way, modeling her costume like she was at Paris Fashion Week, and drinking heavily from the liquor table. My siblings stuck by her practically the whole time, while I was escorted by my son to all the family members who wanted to meet him. At some point in the evening, one of my relatives commented on why I was still wearing my coat, so I told them that I really wasn't comfortable taking it off, as I was feeling a bit self-conscious. My entitled mother heard this and told me to take it off. I responded by saying no, and then we eventually got into an argument over it. She eventually grabbed my coat and tried to tear it off of me. The struggle caused the seashell bra to nearly fall off, and I had to run into the bathroom just to adjust it. I was very angry and extremely embarrassed. Because of this, a bunch of my relatives began giving my entitled mother a hard time about it, but she just brushed it off and kept drinking, thinking the whole thing was hilarious. When I came out of the bathroom, I found my entitled mother complaining to my grandparents about how hard her life has been ever since their son had left her with 3 kids, and that the only consolation that she got was the insurance payout. And of course, she conveniently neglected to admit that he left her in the first place because she is certified insane. She then drunkenly demanded more money from them, claiming she deserved it because her kids were nothing more than a bunch of leeches. As a side note, I was working at the time and I paid rent. If anything, my siblings were the leeches, not me. My grandparents reluctantly offered to help with a little bit of money and gave her a check for $2,500. But that wasn't good enough for my entitled mother. As my relatives were still fussing over my son, my entitled mom got jealous and started wailing. She was being overly dramatic, overly exaggerating, pretending like she's crying. She was so hammered from how much she had been drinking that she no longer had a filter and couldn't control the volume of her voice. She began trash talking everyone at the party, and they could clearly hear what she was saying. My grandparents kindly asked her to calm down, and she pointed her finger at them, calling them deadbeats, as well as being selfish. She screamed at them about how their son had left her with a bunch of unwanted children, referring to me and my siblings, and how her life got destroyed because of them, and that the only reason that she bothered coming was in hopes of getting a bunch of money to make up for the years of suffering that she endured as a single mother. Apparently to her, the $2,500 wasn't good enough and she deserved more. She she ended up saying, "I need you to pay bills to keep a roof over my head. Don't you even care? Your son surely didn't. He left us. Now he's passed away and I'm stuck." Someone then in the crowd chimed in and said, "Yeah, no wonder. Look at how you behave." And my entitled mother after that was just completely dumbfounded. I was embarrassed and my siblings just sat quietly and said nothing. My relatives began yelling at my mother, calling her all kinds of names, and giving her the treatment that she so rightly deserved. She began crying and wailing about how unfair everyone was being to her. She then threatened to call the police, to which a relative claimed they already had. We were all asked to leave by my grandparents, even me and my son. I felt awful. I even had to play damage control once the police did show up, as my siblings were too busy trying to comfort my stupid mother. As I was driving everyone home, my mom was drunkenly bragging about ruining the party, gleeful in the knowledge that she burned that bridge and that she got money out of it. I tried calling my grandparents many times after that to apologize, but they wouldn't even answer my calls. To this day, they still won't talk to me, and honestly, I can't really blame them. My mother tried to cash the check, but the check was voided by my grandfather through his bank. My dad's sister told me that he called the bank the following morning and refused payment on the check, so it was all voided out. But to be completely honest, she would have just taken it to the casino anyways, so there's no great loss in that regard. Now, I realize that my father leaving looks bad on him, but in truth, I really don't remember. I was very young, and all I had to go on was what my entitled mother told me, and given her nature, she wasn't honest about the situation. My dad's sister did tell me that the two of them cheated on each other multiple times, and fought a lot. They got married way too young, straight out of high school. Both were neither mature or stable enough to handle this kind of commitment. My mother made his life unbearable. He was often working, and she was spending money they couldn't afford. Sometimes they didn't even have the money to pay rent, and he would have to beg his parents for it. My aunt told me the day he left, they got into a really big fight that resulted in him receiving a black eye and a broken nose. She wanted the rent money for the bar, and he said no, and she just blew up and began beating on him. He packed his things and he left. He didn't bother trying to call us or come get us. He believed he had no legal leg to stand on, so he gave up without a fight. He passed away in the car accident the following year, and I don't really have any grudges towards my father. I've long past forgiven him for leaving, and I haven't spoken to that side of my family for many years now, and honestly, I'm okay with that. This entitled mother is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, how do you go to a party like that and act like a complete jerk? This is so unbelievably disrespectful, and it just makes your kids look bad. I mean, they were having a good time. The original poster's son was having a fantastic experience. This may have been his one chance to get to know his grandparents, as well as his extended family, but this entitled mother ruined it. But I guess the silver lining here is that the original poster does not live with her anymore. And honestly, after what she did, I don't blame her in the slightest. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for yelling at my ex when she called me just to tell me that she's in love with another man? So I had gotten myself a girlfriend just before I enlisted in my state's National Guard. We were in a long-distance relationship. However, she was only a 2-hour drive from my town, so I still managed to find time to see her. Things were going pretty well. We were both still in school, but still managed to find time for each other in between classes and my drills. I really liked her. She was honestly the girl of my dreams. She was extremely funny, had a great personality, and was extremely beautiful. But then, what I was most afraid of happened. She told me that another guy that she worked with confessed his feelings to her. I wasn't worried as I had faith that she would decline, but much to my surprise, she didn't. She told me on a video call that she wanted to break up with me because of personal issues, as well as not being ready to have a boyfriend. She told me that if I gave her time, she would come back to me. And you know what? I stupidly believed her. Even though we were broken up, I still talked to her daily, and we still had flirtatious conversations over text message, as well as FaceTime. So in a sense, nothing really changed. However, after about a week of me waiting for her, she texted me back the following message. "I'm so sorry, but I found someone else that I truly and deeply love. I probably won't be texting you unless you're like passing away. Again, I'm truly sorry." And after I saw this, I was completely shocked. I was absolutely destroyed for the next week. She had managed to completely destroy my spirit. Over the course of a few weeks, I'd gained 10 pounds and attempted to skip out on my RSP drills, which my staff sergeant would not allow. I was just so heartbroken. During one of my fits of depression, I received a text message from her asking if we could talk, and I said sure, hoping I could rekindle the relationship, but she had other plans. She called me and we started talking about how we met and how she missed the way I made her feel. I asked her what her intentions were with getting back in contact with me, and she told me she doesn't entirely know, as she is still in love with the person that she left me for. And that is when I just about lost it. I just hung up and had a rage fit, but managed to compose myself after a little bit and texted her asking her what her intentions of getting back in contact with me were, but she just kept dodging the question. I asked what the situation between us was, and she started getting confused. I told her that what she did was incredibly selfish. I told her that she completely left me hanging and then had the audacity to come back into my life just to tell me that she was in love with another guy. She gave me this excuse of how she changes fast and falls for people faster than she wants to. She told me that she fell for this guy the moment he confessed to her and lied about needing time just to break up with me and get with the other guy. At this point, I started crying. I then asked her again, "What are your intentions of getting back in contact with me?" And she said she was sorry and that she was just wondering if we could be friends. At this point, I told her to stop. She ended up calling me a few more times, and after the 5th call, I answered and I completely let into her. I started screaming at her, telling her that I don't care if she wants to be friends, and that I've completely lost interest in anything to do with her, platonically or not. I told her that I was not going to be her free therapist that she could just walk all over, and after I said that, I hung up. She hasn't texted me or called me back since, but it begs the question, am I the jerk for yelling at my ex like this? For the original poster, no, you are not the jerk. Your ex-girlfriend is an absolute psychopath. You want to know why she's messaging you back? Because she's absolutely trying to play games. She's trying to string you along because she probably sees it as amusing, and you do not need that in your life. The best kind of revenge for someone like this is to move on and block her on everything. You don't need this person in your life. She's a garbage human being, and trust me when I say this, you would not want to get back with her ever again either. Can you imagine dealing with someone like that who will drop you at the first glance of somebody else confessing their love for her? I mean, how disloyal and disgusting can you possibly get? So just block this ex on everything and move on. This lady is a complete loser, and you are absolutely not the jerk in this situation. I unknowingly created a family with my next door neighbor and her son, and at this point, I don't know what to do. 3 years ago, a woman by the name of Casey and her son Kenny moved into the apartment next door. They had a few boxes, so I figured I would offer to help them out and get off to a good start. I noticed that Kenny had a PS4, so I told him that I game as well, and he was free to come over and play my systems anytime he wanted, if his mother would allow it. I have a PS5, a Nintendo Switch, and a gaming PC as well that I constantly play on. Since I'm a mechanic, I told Casey if she had car trouble, she could come to me anytime, since I also help out a lot of other people on the floor with their cars as well, to which she happily accepted. I didn't really interact with Kenny or Casey, besides a few greetings for a few weeks initially, but a little more than a month after moving in, Casey knocked on my door and asked if I could check her car because the engine wasn't turning over. It turns out the spark plugs needed to be changed, which was easy enough to do. Casey was very thankful for my help and offered to pay, but I told her it was no problem. She invited me to dinner with her and Kenny, and I was hesitant to accept, but she insisted on it. The next day we had dinner, and it was a good time. I learned a lot about her and talked to Kenny more. He is a good kid who's really into games, science, and his guitar. We even all went over to my place for some Mario Kart. From then on, I got really close to Kenny. I viewed him like a little brother. He came over to play my games almost every day, and I even started teaching him about cars. I've even brought him to my shop to introduce him to the tools that we use. He's a quick study, and he even told Casey he wants to be a mechanic just like me. I told him to aim higher and become an engineer. He's now even looking into engineering programs. I think Casey really appreciates our relationship. She's become a lot more friendly with me as well. I got COVID during lockdown, and out of the kindness of her heart, she brought me groceries, cleaned my apartment, and even took care of me. I was really totally grateful. She even cooks dinner for me every night, and we all have dinner together. She even makes dinner for me when I work late and leaves it in my apartment. The other day, Kenny brought one of his friends over to his apartment, and that's when Kenny said something that really surprised me. He looked at his friend and said, "Yeah, this guy, he's basically like my dad." And I'm not gonna lie, that took me by utter surprise. I always viewed Kenny as my little brother, but here he is saying that I'm like a dad to him. I asked Casey about this, and she seemed surprised that I even asked. She said that she would never force that role onto me, but that he did view me as a father. He even hoped that me and Casey would get together so that we could be a real family. Casey then said that she wouldn't mind that either. I asked her if she was asking me out, and she just smiled and said yes. I was surprised, but I said okay. We have a dinner date this weekend, and I'm nervous, and I don't want to ruin things with Casey or Kenny. I really do love them both, but I'm not sure how I feel about being the father figure for Kenny. It's a lot of responsibility, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm the guy for it. And Casey, well, she's an amazing woman. I really hope I can measure up to her expectations, so I'm honestly not sure. Should I put some boundaries between me and Kenny? Are these worries unfounded? How do I not screw this up with Casey? I just have so many questions about this situation. What should I do? I mean, I don't think there's much to worry about here. It sounds like you've got a really good thing between you, Casey, and Kenny. In my opinion, I would just roll with it and see where it goes. I think he probably already viewed you as a father figure in his life well before he announced it to his friend. So in my opinion, you're already doing the things that would be required to be a good father in this kid's life. And best of all, you literally found a future stepkid that actually wants you in their life. And that's an awesome thing to have. Like, the hard part is literally over. So all you have to do is just keep on the course and just be a good role model. I mean, you said it yourself. This does take a lot of responsibility to step in like that. And from the sounds of it, you're doing a great job. So if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't count myself out in this situation. I think you have a good future ahead of you, and I really do think that this could be a positive thing in you, Casey, and Kenny's life. My ex is upset with me because I was unsatisfied with our relationship and I chose to move on. And now, after I have a new partner, they suddenly want to get back together, and I'm honestly so done and I don't know what to do. We met when we were 26. We were friends for 2 years and dated for 6 months before becoming official. Then we had a relationship for another 2 years. I shared that I wanted to be married eventually, but didn't want children. In contrast, he did not ever want to be married, but he did want children. We agreed to revisit the topic in the future, but it never really happened. I brought up living together when we had been dating for over a year, and he said he wasn't ready, so I ended up waiting for him until he was ready. And again, he never brought it up again. But when I eventually broke up with him, he claimed that he was trying to hint at it the entire time. I feel like we would never be more than 2 people seeing each other once or twice a week, and this is all probably until the girl who would want to have his children appeared in his life, in which case he would probably kick me to the curb. His brother got engaged, and I felt so inferior to his girlfriend. It ate away at me, yet I didn't want to push my commitment on my avoidant boyfriend. COVID put a huge strain on our relationship as well. We didn't see each other much, and when I turned 30, I decided right then and there that I didn't want to be in a dead-end relationship, and so as a result, I broke up with my now ex-boyfriend. At the time, we agreed to be friends, and I really meant that. I love his company, but didn't think that we were compatible in a relationship. I think of him as one of my closest friends, and that's about it. Fast forward to a little over a year later, and about a few months ago, I got into a relationship with my current partner. It was serious from day one. A month in, we were starting to talk about a future together. He's fine with me being friends with my ex, but of course, after the way my ex has been acting, I absolutely am going to break contact with him. Now, at this point, my ex is mad that I have a new partner. He said that he was hoping that we would get back together, and that I led him on and used him for emotional support. And honestly, I'm really confused, because I feel that I've treated him like my other friends. Because in my mind, that's what we were. We were just friends, nothing more. He had a year to make a move and try and get back together with me if he really thought that was going to be our future. In fact, we already know that we are incompatible long term when it comes to any kind of plans. He didn't want to take our relationship forward when we were dating, so what suddenly changed? Can someone please help me understand what's going on here? And in case you're wondering, no, I'm absolutely not going to remain friends after this, regardless of what happens, because the way he's acting is super inappropriate. But I honestly just want to understand, because I'm at a loss and I'm not sure what to do. Your ex-boyfriend sounds really obnoxious. It sounds like he wanted to keep you around without ever trying to make any kind of commitment in life. And you're the exact opposite. You don't want to waste your time with someone who's not going to give you any kind of security. And that security also includes you getting married. There's also a lack of communication. You said it yourself. If he really wanted to get back together with you, he should have made a move in the year that you two were broken up. I mean, that's not your fault. You moved on with your life. And now he's just throwing a tantrum and he's freaking out. I bet, if anything, that you were just his backup plan when nothing else went through. He clearly couldn't find anybody else who would be willing to put up with his antics. And so he always held on to this false hope that somehow you two would get back together, despite the fact that you were completely incompatible. So in my opinion, it's time to just cut him off and move on. He is clearly too immature to be in a responsible irresponsible relationship, and having him linger around is only going to be annoying and cause problems. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And the next time you live stream, use the cream of the crop music. Search Cream of the Stream on Spotify or whatever platform you use for copyright-free music to use for your next stream.